Hi, welcome to the Mindset Junkie podcast. I am your host, Seamus Fox. I created this podcast to inspire people like you, people who want to create change in their lives but possibly feel stuck. I love speaking with guests from all over the world who have created change in their own mindsets so that they can be the best and the highest version of themselves. They have greater impact on this world. So strap yourself in and enjoy the Mindset Junkie journey. Hey guys, welcome back to the Mindset Junkie podcast. Today's guest is Pete Tansley. Pete, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, brother. It's good to be here.
At last, we got it done. It's been a while in the making.
That's right. It's like some things are worth waiting for, and this was one of them, right?
Exactly. Pete, for the listeners, could you give people a wee bit of a background of who you are, where you are, what you're involved in, what you do right now?
Yeah, if you gathered from the accent, I'm an Aussie. I'm here on the Gold Coast in Australia. I'm a dad. I've got twins, just turned 8. And I'm a business coach helping specifically personal trainers to go online to help more people with this crazy world we're in right now. So that's what I'm currently doing and really enjoying that.
Okay, fantastic. What I'd like to do, Pete, is take it back even further. So what was it like as a young Pete Tansley growing up? What was that area like? What was the environment like? What were the early inspirations? Were you always involved in sport? And did you know what you wanted to do kind of from an early onset? Or what was that like? What was the path?
Yeah, I definitely didn't know what I wanted. I definitely didn't know. Hang on one tick. The paper's just there, mate. I didn't know as I was lucky. I had a great childhood, man. Like upper middle class, great part of the world, low crime, very safe. But if I knew what I wanted to do, definitely not. I went to a school that was really pushing this path to, even from the age of 14 or 15, to lock in your university, to get that lockdown. And at around that age, my parents went through a split. And I just became really disinterested with everything other than surfing and playing rugby. That was really it. So academics took a back seat. I wasn't an academic kid. Me sitting down for 6 to 8 hours to listen to some, middle-aged teacher in my current reality at age 14, 15 wasn't what sort of got me excited. So my outlet was sport, and how I got attention was achieving in sport.
Fantastic.
So through school, probably like lots of people on this show can relate to, right? Through high school, then, this is interesting. I was super active. I was a swimmer competitively. My mum was a swim coach, and I surfed and played rugby and was super active. But around the age when girls started to become interesting to a young male, I was like, oh, why am I kind of like skinny fat? So I was kind of this chubby kid, despite literally swimming, 5 to 8 sessions a week, playing rugby, then playing out of school rugby as well, plus surfing. I was like super active. But my diet would be, there was I don't know if you know the sport of surf lifesaving in Australia.
No, not familiar.
It's like out in the ocean, but you race, and there's a board leg. It's like a triathlon, but kind of all in the ocean.
Yeah. And
back when I was around that age, there was these superheroes of the sport who would be on TV promoting like breakfast cereals and bread and all these carbohydrate-based foods. And I was just like devouring them. I remember my breakfast bowl was like this big, and I was like just full with cereal and milk and fruit and Milo, this stuff you pour on top, this chocolate flavor. And like looking back, I'm like, well, of course you were like 25% body fat, Yeah. But back then, the government thing was, hey, have your 12 to 15 serves of grains per day and keep fats really low, which turns out to be horrible for my body. Like I was inflamed and sort of always injured and like just chubby. So as I got, into high school and then out of school, I was like, well, man, like I became really curious about how the body works and why has that guy got a 6-pack, but I seem to be training twice as much as him, which I think looking back now, I've always been someone, if I'm curious on something, I'll go very deep.
Yeah.
So I then studied nutrition and body transformation. And this was maybe 2001, 2002. So there was like early internet forums.
Yeah.
And I would go onto these like gym bodybuilding forums and like steal someone's diet and implement these things. And slowly my body began to literally change. And I remember this so clearly because at around that age, I grew I'm 6'3" now, but like 6'2". But before that, I was maybe like 5'8", 5'9", like pretty short, kind of chubby, like, didn't get much female attention. I transformed my body and shot up in the space of 6 months. And all of a sudden, like I noticed people or females like would talk to you. And at that age was the greatest thing ever. So that was my early.
Like boosting confidence.
Totally. Yeah. And I think I still had the low self-worth and self-esteem, but I was having like people actually talk to me and sort of respect you. And that was my first realization that, yeah, like fitness can be a conduit to change so many other areas of life because it gives you confidence, you're more disciplined. I think people do respect you more when you appear to take good care of yourself and respect yourself.
100%. I think it shows that you have certain standards a lot of the time, and people sometimes are maybe not necessarily impressed by it, but they see that you have a certain way about yourself and you have a certain standard, and I think it influences people in a certain way for sure. So when you left school then, Pete, was it straight into, what was the first job? What was it? Did you go straight into personal training at that time, or what happened?
Yeah, so I didn't even know that personal training was a legitimate path. I was always interested in sport, and the career counselor at school said, oh, you should be a physiotherapist. But back then, this is a while ago now, but back then that was a very popular thing to get into, which means your score had to be really high. In Australia, we have the OP, like it's the scoring system. And I think you need to be in like the top 92 percentile or something. And I was almost in the bottom 10 percentile. So that was off the cards. So it got me thinking about the ways. And my mum was training for triathlons at the time, and she dragged me to the gym, and her trainer there said, oh, Pete, you surf? I was like, yeah. Oh, I've got this young surfer coming in called Mick Fanning. He's just torn his hamstring. And this was my first realization that this lady wasn't a physiotherapist. She was a personal trainer, but she was training the future world champion, Mick Fanning, surf champion, who's like a hero here in Australia. And it got me excited that there's this pathway to take where you can become a personal trainer. And that one conversation, she recommended that, which really changed the trajectory of life, really. So from there, I enrolled, and back then it was like an 18-month certification program into becoming a PT. And that was my introduction to the industry.
Fantastic. So you continued on just as a personal trainer. I know that you opened your gym pretty young. Did you open a gym at 21, Pete? Isn't that right?
Yeah, 21, just before my 22nd birthday. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So if you go back to that time, what was it that kind of led you straight into opening up a gym, or did you kind of freelance for a while and build your business up naturally? What was the natural inclination to go, right, I need to open up my own place?
Yeah. So I got a job. This was, now 2002. And in Australia, the gym scene was a little bit behind the UK and the US. There was no big box gyms. There was really health centers and sport and leisure centers. So I got a job at a university locally, and it was a really good introduction to the industry. I started cleaning toilets whilst I was studying. Then I was on the reception desk on a Sunday morning answering, inquiries for tennis courts. And through that, I rose fairly quickly. I became a PT, then I managed the PTs, and I became the assistant gym manager. And like most employees, I thought, well, my boss is a bit of an idiot. I could do it better. He's leaving at 5. I'm staying back and, doing all the dirty work. So I thought, and a lot of my clients at the time were very successful business owners. They were arriving, at lunchtime in a different car each session. And that really inspired me as a young kid. And I noticed they all had their own business. But where I was lacking a belief was, I thought I needed a business degree to open a business. So as a staff member of the university, I got sort of a very easy entry into the university and started studying business. But it didn't take me long to realize that all of the lecturers had never owned a business, were pro-employment.
Yeah.
And even the person teaching the class called entrepreneurship had never managed or owned a business.
Wasn't it Richard Branson that said, if I had went to business school, I'd have never opened a business?
100%.
Yeah.
And I was really lucky that some of my personal training clients became sort of my business mentors, because I would ask them questions. How did you start? Why do you have 6 cars? All these questions that it's just a different world for me.
Mm.
And one of them, we would go for coffee after a session. He said, Pete, you do realize you don't need this degree to open your own business. And similar to the conversation when I went to the gym with my mom, like a short conversation with, I guess, a mentor in a way, really changed, in both of those instances, changed everything for me. And I think I quit the next day and put my resignation notice in. I had no idea what I was going to do, but I just left and said, screw it, I'm going to start my own business.
Yeah. Looking back at that time, Pete, what were some of the early mistakes that you made that you maybe weren't aware of, misconceptions of what it was like to run a business or what success was? If you can look back, what were those kind of tough times, let's say, things that you didn't really do your due diligence on?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think sometimes naivety can be a good thing. Like, I'm kind of glad I'm still not somebody who over plans and over analyzes, because I coach some of those people now and they struggle to even take the first step. But for me, that same mentor I had the conversation with, as I took on a commercial lease, he told me to wait and to be patient. And he was sort of coaching me on how to negotiate. But I ignored him and rushed this lease, which I grossly overpaid for. So the lesson there for me was to take it slower, to listen, to be coachable, but also not to rush these decisions. And I think it was my ego wanting to tell my friends I've just signed a lease versus waiting an extra few weeks or months to really find a good spot.
Yeah. I remember even going back there when I opened my first place, I was actually freelancing from another place, doing quite well, no real overheads, successful, making good money. And it was actually the brother had said, would you not open your own place? And I was like, nah, I don't really want to open my own place. And fine. But he planted the seed. Shortcut, 3 months later, I had my own place. But at that time as well, too, I think it was not really having a vision for where you really wanted to go. And now all of a sudden you're doing the same hours that you were doing in somewhere else with less overheads. Now you've got more overheads, you've more responsibilities, you've more outgoings, etc. So I think a lot of the times personal trainers think that by owning your own facility, it's going to mean more money, it's going to mean more success. A lot of the times it's not. Did you have that experience as well, Pete?
Yeah, that's 1,000% true. To fast forward a few steps, I ended up working with a business partner and in some business development stuff. It was his company, but I helped maybe 40 to 50 trainers to open their own center. And I would say with 90% of those, they would have been better off staying in a big box gym paying rent and just collecting, a few grand a week, which is great for someone in the early 20s, without the 80-hour work weeks and the overhead and the stress, and also now having to do lead gen, whereas before that was taken care of. So I think some people might have to walk that to actually understand that and go through that process. But I think it's worth looking at, does it make sense for me to have my own facility? Is it my ego just saying, hey, that's my logo on the building and it makes business sense? Or do you really want to, grow this into a fantastic facility? And if you do, that's amazing. But I think for a lot of people, they're frustrated for whatever reason wearing the gym's logo and not being your brand. But from a business point of view, they will possibly better just staying there.
Yeah, 100%. I've seen it time and time again. And sometimes it just makes sense. It depends on what a person really wants and what the vision is as well too for them. Yeah. I know for me that it wasn't really something that I was interested in. And then when I got into it, it was like, okay, I could see now that there's a brand and more potential and it can grow. And I also did that and made more mistakes. So yeah, it depends on the vision, I think, for each person. If you look back, Pete, and going through your personal training career as a coach, what was it that really kind of inspired you to do exactly what you're doing? And has that thread continued on right now?
I think from witnessing my own, I guess, body transformation and how that could impact other areas of your life, I was like, man, like this would be really cool to teach it to others.
Yeah.
And it was amazing, like to help somebody, and they do all the work. But I think if you can guide them or mentor them through, whether it's 12 weeks or 12 months or 8 years, I had some clients for, when you see other areas of their life improve from fitness being the catalyst, it's like such an inspiring thing.
Yeah, definitely. So if you look at like coaches and personal trainers and people you work with, Pete, like what are the differences that you see between people who go out and do exactly what it is that you ask them to do, people who kind of like slowly step through it, maybe don't do it, maybe don't take the action? What are the differences that you see? Is it mindset? Is it their vision? Is it experiences? Because I know that I've seen it in people that I coach. There's people that just go, boom, they're away and do it, they get the results, and then some like tiptoe around it.
Yeah, I wish I could say as a trainer and as a business coach that every person I worked with got to their goal. That's not true. I think if somebody says that, they're either full of shit or they've maybe had one or two clients. Like either they're lying with what's happened, or their numbers are so low that maybe it is true. I would say, firstly, the onus is on the coach to not just give the person like a fire hose of information. Because for a beginner, if you take a personal training client, if somebody has never cooked a meal in their life and they've got no idea what a carbohydrate or a protein is, like giving them like too much information could actually do them more harm than good. So let's just imagine the coach is skilled in maybe habit change and drip feeding some stuff out and understanding the cadence. That's a skill. But if we look at, from my experience, like the characteristics of people who get results, they're not afraid to ask for help. That's the first one. And I think a lot of guys, like, hey, I've been there. We all have. We struggle to ask for help.
100%.
Like we think I should know this, or it's a silly question. So when we say, when I bring a client on today, I say, hey, there's three things. Number one, ask as many questions as you need. Even if you're unsure, still ask it. Like be annoying, like ask the questions. And you can have boundaries around that as a coach. You're not answering questions 24/7, but they need to know that they can ask questions. Okay. The second one is also to be quick to implement. Now that's like the flip side of that, right? So I think you need to empower people to be resourceful and to Google quick things if they need, or to be okay to just implement and to do it ugly. As in, like, it doesn't have to be perfect. Let's get it to maybe a C level or a B- level and implement it instead of waiting until it's,
that's
what they think.
Yeah, and that's a big thing, Pete, because it's something, especially as you mentioned there, like the egotistical personal training industry or the fitness industry, like they're comparing themselves to other coaches and other trainers, and they're afraid to put something out because it's not good enough. 100%, that's bang on. I see that.
Yeah, and really often, man, the people who what might be perceived as like a really quick win, we haven't seen the 3 other business coaches they've hired. We haven't seen the breakups they've gone through. We haven't seen the mental breakdown they had 3 months ago. Like we haven't seen that stuff, and we see them as like this really quick success. But maybe they dropped out of school as a 15-year-old and have been working in a business since then. Like we don't know the full story, or the price they've paid behind the scenes. So I think that's really unhealthy.
Yeah. And number 3 was, I think I interrupted you there, sorry.
Oh, number 3 for our clients, you say, be quick to share your wins. So like in the group, share what's working, to create that. I think today more than ever in 2021, it's a crazy time to build a community of like-minded people, because this entrepreneurial world is a crazy shitstorm of events, right? Like it can be hard. It can be difficult. I think if we all share, even if somebody's 5 steps ahead of you or 5 steps behind you, I think we can all sort of learn something from each other. And I don't want to be like the guru saying everything. Like I think we can all learn from everyone. So there are 3 things to almost guarantee success. They're the 3 things.
Yeah, 100%. For yourself, Pete, what do you do in terms of routine? I know that you see some of your posts like with a nightgown, etc. Like you're hitting out at the 5 o'clock, the 5 a.m. routine, which seems to be the norm in the self-development space. You have to get up at 5 and you have to do X, Y, and Z. But I'm sure that you do have some type of routine to keep yourself in shape and condition your mind, etc., to what's important. What do you do yourself, Pete, to keep yourself focused, to keep yourself moving forward, to keep yourself growing? Obviously, we met each other through a group of a marketing group where you're constantly educating yourself and moving forward. But do you have a specific routine that you do that keeps you in shape and focused?
Yeah, I do. And I love this topic because I think I explain this as like the ceiling and the floor. So I think so many people, they come in, they start a new journey, whether it's weight loss or business or life transformation, and they want to immediately hit their best days ever consistently for the next year. And I think that's, if I had to choose between two people, like, so if the floor is level 1 and the ceiling is level 10, people want to hit a level 10 every single day forever, even though for 5 years they've been operating at a level 1. So I say to people, let's first build your floor up to maybe level 3 and never go beneath that. So what would a level 3 day look like for, let's say, a business owner? Maybe it's they wake up without hitting snooze. They do something for their mind, something for their body, and something to move the business forward. And that seems pretty simple. And everybody wants the magic hack. How do I become a millionaire tomorrow? How do I get a 6-pack next week? But I think if we can consistently build some structure around the bare ass minimum day, and I'm talking 6 and sometimes 7 days a week hitting that, I would bet on that person more than the guy or gal trying to hit the 10, but then can't do it and might hit it once every 2 months versus this person just hitting singles, like in a baseball or a cricket analogy, right? Just hit the singles. So for me, my singles are sleep. I take that pretty seriously. I was an idiot in my 20s. Like, I remember the first of a business mastermind I joined, there's this group chat and we would all send each other like at 3 a.m. wake up times, thinking we were like so macho, getting up at 3 a.m. to start work. And I look back now, dude, it's just like the stupidest thing. Now I sleep for as long as I need, based on tonight's activity, so that I can wake up fresh. So it's sleep. I meditate in the morning first thing, and then I try to do at least an hour, sometimes 2 hours of deep work as early in the day as possible.
Yeah. Something that you know that you can maintain, Pete, something that's consistent, and you probably built that in. Like for myself as well too, I've tried a lot of different things in terms of my routine and finding out what works, what doesn't work. But I have consistency in a couple of like key areas, and that is, again, sleep. Sleep's really, really important to me, and the morning routine is so important. It's breath work, it's meditation, and then it's like a focus planner, right? What they need to do, what's the highest priority actions, etc., and then take action. I think a lot of times people in personal training, business, self-development in general, think that they should be spending 2 to 3 hours on their morning routine and getting nothing done.
Yeah. I think like and I like structure until it doesn't work. So maybe for 60 or 30 or 90 days, my morning routine will be pretty tight, but then I'll like the novelty of something new. I might reintroduce a quick round of breath work, or I might do a morning walk first thing with no headphones in, but it will be structured for a while. Then it will change a little bit. I think sometimes people get so rigid with what they think they have to be doing, but if it's not working, it's okay to evolve it depending on your growth and your stage with what you're in.
100%. So let's fast forward then, even going back to last year, Pete, when COVID hit, when we get hit with everything that's been going on in the world right now. What were your initial reactions? What did you do in terms of keeping yourself in check and your business in check? Because obviously we were all faced with something we never got faced with before. And what did you see within the fitness industry in terms of people that you're coaching? Was there people that just opted out completely? Were they not able to adapt? What was your initial reactions, Pete? And what did you think of the whole situation?
Yeah, I mean, the first lockdown in Australia, I didn't see coming. I was pretty aware with what was happening, and I was looking at both sides of the argument early on, but I didn't see the lockdown happening here in Australia like it did. I was quite fortunate. My business didn't really change. I've been online now since 2018. The team are all remote. So nothing structurally really changed in my day. But what I became aware of is people who crave certainty struggled. So now one of the key things I try to, really teach is you have to be comfortable with uncertainty. And the more you can get uncomfortable with that, the more you'll thrive. Like, it's going to change a lot. We can't predict what will happen next week. But if you can get really familiar with uncertainty, you will win, or you'll be way more likely to win.
Yeah.
That's like a main message. Like, we had gym clients. I work mostly with online PTs and coaches now, but back then we had CrossFit owners and gym owners, and their initial reaction was like when somebody sits in cold water for the first time, like their breathing's panicked and they're not thinking clearly and they think they have to get out. But I think everything that happens like that is purely an opportunity to say, well, what's the pivot here? What's the lesson here? What can we add on here? And to somehow find a way to stay optimistic through it, you know?
Yeah, 100%. You have to be able to, you have to be malleable. And as you said, like, if you're always looking for that certainty, it's never going to happen. The universe just doesn't work that way. And you're creating difficulties for yourself. So what have you learned most of that year, Pete, up until this point? And we can touch again on what's going on right now, because there's even more restrictions, etc., as what you're going through. But what did you learn most as a coach, as a person, as a father, over that initial period up until this point?
Yeah, I think there was lots of reminders and like things I maybe thought I knew and had to learn them properly. I think some of them were, you know, there's certain things you can control and certain things that you can't. So I think one of the keys every single day as you wake up is, what are you going to dive into first? Are you going to scroll your phone and go on some mainstream news sites and get sucked into the fear and propaganda? Or are you going to perhaps create or tap into your vision again, or be conscious of when you're feeling pulled a certain direction to maybe do some breath work or go for a walk? Like, what are you going to choose to do each day? Because if you're just like, well, fuck it, the world's turning to shit, you will be sucked down this rabbit hole of negativity and fear. And I know for a fact you can't sell, you can't serve, you can't be creative when you're getting sucked into that vortex. Like, it's physically impossible.
100%, man. And that's so true. And as a coach and as a personal trainer or a coach in general, I think if you go back to what your initial reason for doing what you're doing is to actually serve people. But if you're stuck in that fear, you're trapped. You can't think at all. And everything's irrational at that point. So 100%, I agree with that. Because I know myself, like, let's call a spade a spade. I went down a lot of those rabbit holes last year. I got sucked into a right few of them. And I don't watch the news or read newspapers or anything like that. But that is just as bad. Once you click on something on your phone, the next thing you're straight down that rabbit hole, and it's like, fuck. But I had to take those step backs pretty fast and recognize where I was going with those and go, right, hold on a minute. Where's the other side of this? So this is the chaos. Where's the order? Where's the balance and all this? And how's it actually serving me right now? And I've done a lot more work on that recently as well, too, to see where the grand organized design actually is, and how do we actually come out of this, and how does it actually serve me and people I'm serving and humanity, etc. But it is testing, 100%. It is testing. You can't say anything different.
For sure. And, you know, I get that for a lot of people, they're happy to tune completely out. Others like to be aware with still what's going on because it might impact them and their children and their business. I get that. But I think as well, on a day-to-day level, I say, like, create before you consume.
Yeah, 100%.
Can you spend the first 1 or 2 or 3 hours at YouTube? You can go into that, but be very selective with what it is you're tuning into, and make sure it's come after what you need to do to serve your family and your business and your clients first. And then that's the next priority, not the first thing each morning, which hijacks your nervous system and hijacks your dopamine and, you know, screws up your creativity for the day.
Yeah, 100%, man. So what is the situation over there right now with you, Pete? I know that I've actually got some clients, but they're in Perth and everything seems to be okay. They're not locked down, but I know you're back in lockdown, or you're close to somewhere wherever things locked down again. Is that correct? Yeah.
Yeah. I'm fortunate that, like I said before the show, like 20 minutes from me is the next state. And they've just come out of a very strict lockdown. And the other area is Melbourne, which is, I think, the most locked down city in the world now. And I'm surprised there aren't more riots and more buildings on fire, because the science they're backing for lockdowns, there's no counter argument allowed. There's no option. If you have a gym or a facility down there, or even if you have an essential business, you're still being locked down.
Yeah.
Which makes zero sense if you look at the studies on lockdowns and the efficiency of them. It's very puzzling.
100%. And I've tried to look at that as well too, and look at the science, let's say, but there's more and more science that's coming out that's saying all of those things, that lockdowns don't work, that we don't need to do X, Y, and Z. And you're still going, well, like, what is the point? Like, what is this agenda then? Why is this actually happening? What's your opinion on it, Pete? Why do you feel that these things are going on? Why are we not getting back to living normal lives, let's say? When you look at the actual stats in terms of the people that are actually the people that are more vulnerable, well, 90% or over 90% of those people have now been fully vaccinated. Wasn't that the reason why we went on the lockdown in the first place?
Exactly. I mean, if anybody, without taking sides, but if anybody just asks some questions and looks deeper, there's a lot of things that don't make sense. Why are we keeping with lockdowns? Why here they're saying we need 80% of the population double vax before freedoms are reinstated, but they haven't claimed what those freedoms are either.
Yeah.
And anybody who questions this is automatically a conspiracy theorist nut job. And I think a lot of that is fueled. This is interesting because if you study influence, and I'm sure you do, and propaganda, this is a beautifully oiled machine of propaganda.
Yeah.
And people say it's not propaganda. They're just telling me the news. Well, you don't know it's propaganda. That's how good influence works.
Yeah.
You don't realize you're being influenced. But the leaders here, and I noticed Trudeau does this as well in Canada, where they really create this strong divisive language against what they call anti-vaxxers or the nut jobs or the people. They're creating this us and them argument, which is beautifully orchestrated from their copywriters. I applaud them, even though I'm very against what they're saying, but they're doing a great job of getting the normies or the vaccinated to really turn against those who are pro-choice through language and through influence. It's beautifully done. So I'm 20% impressed, but 80% outraged that it's happening right here. And most Aussies, I don't think, are aware of it.
And that's the thing. And from my own opinion as well too, which is just that it's an opinion, I feel that most people aren't aware of it. And I know that by studying, like as you said, influence, and studying the mind and studying like clinical hypnotherapy and all different modalities that actually can condition and program a person in one way or another, you can see these things like NLP and the language and the things that are being said and pushed. Look at the repetition of this message that's been bombarding people's minds through news, TV outlets consistently, which is another way of conditioning a person's mind. Fear, the biggest one. When you're locked down in that mode of fear, you can't think logically or rationally. Everything is a threat. And when you're in fear, you contract and you just want to like take care of yourself. And that's how I feel that it's become so polarized. For me, probably like yourself, it's like, why? Like, when do we actually get out of this? How do people start to actually really wake up and see something different? So what do you see actually happening right now, Pete, in terms of where you are, or how are you dealing with what's going on right now and your clients, etc.?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sharing these lessons that I've said with you, and it's just been, I think as well, this is a good thing for any coaches, is some lessons just need to be repeated lots of times.
Yeah.
If we look at school for children or anyone who influences groups of people, it's often the same lessons said over and over and over again. And I think that's coaching in a similar way. And this sort of ties into a marketing thing. I think sometimes we think, oh, I've said that, I've spoken about that, but often these things need some repetition and need some time to sink in and to be adopted by whoever you're sort of trying to influence. So I think you asked, where do I see this going, or where do I see for clients right now?
Yeah. How are you kind of dealing with it yourself? Where do you see it going, and how are you helping clients move through that? Because let's face it, people are in a state of frustration and anger. A lot of people are, especially with more lockdowns and no kind of sight of when it's going to end. So what are you doing to try and get through it yourself? What's the focus? What's the vision? And how are you helping other people do that?
Well, for me, my vision is for anyone who's a coach or a trainer or has any skill that they're typically doing offline or in a facility, now there's no better time than now to transition some or all of your income to be online, because you're not governed by the government. You're not governed by lockdown laws. You don't have to be in a facility as well, or a room wherever you treat or work with people. So now there's no better time than now. Yeah. And maybe gyms reopen back to, let's go back to normal is what they're saying, in a month, 3 months, 12 months. Now that this has happened, I guarantee it will happen again. So the first lockdown, maybe you were caught off guard. The second or third or fifth lockdown, like here in Australia, you should not be caught off guard now. There's really no excuse now for the 6th time or the 16th time to not be prepared. So like move now.
Yeah.
We've seen lockdowns here that they have a case, they have a press release. That day we go into lockdown. Yeah. So New Zealand happened as well, 3 or 4 weeks ago. So I think like move now, get your clients online now, learn how to deliver your business online now, because on the other side of this as well is more freedom. You can live remotely. You can hopefully travel and take your business with you, and you can actually help more people. Because the biggest thing I've learned, cool, Australia's in lockdown, sucks, hate it. Let me help more Americans right now. Yeah. UK, you guys are in a big lockdown. My clients were hit hard when that happened. What was that, last Christmas? Cool. Okay, well, let's pause our marketing there for now and shift to Canada and the USA. Like with an online business, you are global.
100%.
So if your town is implemented by this lockdown or another, health quote unquote crisis in the future, you have no excuse not to be ready now.
Yeah, and that's true. And even with you going online, like you're not necessarily capped in any way, where if you're in person and you have all the overheads, etc. as well too. And that's happened for people where people have seen, right, well, this is a really good opportunity for me now to actually close this gym that was burning me out and causing me stress. Now I can go online and take my business online, travel around the world when that's allowed again, and create more impact. So yeah, again, it's a flip of a coin. It depends on your perception and how you deal with things. And I think that always comes back down to, again, your vision, what you actually want for the future. Are you staying tight with that? Are you conditioning yourself each and every day in order for you to be on that path consistently? 100%.
And I think just to circle back on that, I love this idea of high intention but low attachment. Yeah. When I first opened my first facility and was like really starting to think big, I was like, man, I want to have 50 gyms around the world, helping lots of people, being a great leader, having a great team, and making a great impact. Now, I look back now and I think like with COVID, you always can connect the dots looking backwards. But I think with me, I had all these things happening through my 20s and early 30s. And now looking back, I was like, I'm kind of doing that intention that I had. It's just not with 50 gyms.
Yeah.
I have clients around the world and we're making great income, great impact. I really feel we're changing lives. That was always the intention, but the attachment to having like 50 facilities, like to be a Fitness First or a Good Life, chain. Well, that kind of evolved, but the intention has actually come true.
Brilliant. And we talked about that last night, actually, in the academy. We were talking about values, and like a lot of times we do get motivated, or we get other people's values injected into us, and we think we have to have 50 gyms, and we think we have to be doing this and doing that. And then all of a sudden you see that it crashes and burns. You see that as an event that's sabotaged, etc. Not necessarily. It's a way to get you back to doing exactly what it is that you truly value, what's really high in your priorities, and to be authentic. So I know that I've had the same thing as well too, where I opened 4 different gyms, wanted to grow this franchise even bigger. But I think within 5-6 months, it collapsed. At the time, I didn't see it as a blessing, but now I see it as a blessing because I'm doing exactly what I do love to do and what I do want to do and how I can serve people more. 100%. Pete, what do you see? What's success not? We all get told what success is. What isn't success?
Yeah, I think living somebody else's dream, your parents, or the path you think you should be walking. I think doing stuff that doesn't light you up. And I don't mean like business all the time should be full of joy, because there are days that you have to get shit done. But I think that you have a desire and you have goals there should be listened to. And again, it doesn't mean we change business plans every 30 days, but I think we have to listen to that and tune in. And I think that comes back to self-awareness, which I know you teach, but I think like being aware to like, yeah, what is my gut saying here? What are these things I'm ignoring? I think that's what success is listening to that and making some good decisions based on that over time.
Yeah, 100%, man. 100%. What are you inspired by right now, Pete, and moving forward with the rest of this year and in the next year?
Man, that's a great question. What am I inspired by? I think more growth. I've been jumping into some plant medicine ceremonies recently, like this year. And that probably wouldn't have happened without COVID, because I would have been traveling more and probably filling my curiosity with that. But that for me is like, I've had therapy before, but that to me is like 10 years of therapy in a weekend, like
what did you
I
do?
think like that exploration into that has blown me sort of wide open and has actually helped my business as I've become like a more well-rounded person. Business has taken off, content's easier, I'm attracting better clients from doing that deeper work for me.
What was it? Was it ayahuasca or what?
So it started with mushrooms.
Okay.
For me, like, probably like most 20 somethings at a festival, you take some stuff, but when you've taken 12 things that weekend, you don't have an intention behind it. But earlier this year, yes, some intention with mushrooms. And then more recently, Cambo, and then ayahuasca. I just blew me open. Like that was incredible for me.
The Aya.
Yeah.
I've been threatening to do it, man, over the last year and a half. And I almost pushed the button and did it a couple of months ago, but something didn't just feel right in terms of where I was going to do it, etc. And they say that it's something that calls you, that you'll know when you're supposed to do it and when you have to do it. I've done psilocybin, as you said, not going to parties, etc., but doing psilocybin for a specific reason. I've done it through breath work, etc., and got really good breakthroughs with that. But ayahuasca has, from what I hear from everybody else that's done it, it's life-changing.
Yeah, it really is. And, but it is work.
Yeah.
I told a small number of people, and my mum was like, "Oh, how was your weekend with the drugs?" I was like, "Mum, this wasn't like taking acid and going to Woodstock. This was like, this was like, you come out of it exhausted, like, because it's confronting."
Yeah.
But you're right, dude. I had the opportunity to go in 2016 with a dude I met at a breathwork event, and I was just like, "No, it's not for me. Like, sounds stupid." I had an opportunity in 2019 and also wasn't called, but now I was like, I'm ready. And like that week, an opportunity opened up, somebody canceled, I took it, and yeah.
Brilliant. And as you said, it's doing the work, and apparently coming back after it as well too. It's doing the work. Like you have to have like some type of principles or application of something again in order for you to keep those results. Again, we know that we all go back into old habits if we don't be consistent. How did you find coming back after that weekend and back into normal life, let's say?
Yeah, I think, that integration is something I'm trying to improve at. Even if it's listening to a podcast or reading a book, is not just jumping to the next thing, is actually, okay, like maybe I disagreed, but what did I agree or disagree? What did I like from that? What's one thing I can actually implement? And I think that practice is helpful at personal development events or plant medicine ceremonies as well. It's like, okay, cool. That was great. What am I actually going to change and implement? And for me, journaling on that and meditating on a specific question and has been helpful, because I was guilty. Even 5 years ago, I've been the person who's like, yeah, I read 50 books this year. Oh, cool. Can you talk for an hour on this book? Oh, no, I don't really remember it, So I think like the art of maybe reading a book for an hour, but taking 4 hours to summarize your thoughts and speak on it and review it and go back and highlight it, as opposed to just like next thing, which can actually be a distraction.
100%. People think that they need to do that, bombard themselves with information. Knowing information doesn't mean you're going to change. It doesn't mean you're going to actually implement behavior change or get different results. We've been taught that all through school, taking information. Do you remember it? Does it change your life? No, of course not. What's one big thing, Pete, if you don't mind me asking, what was the one big message or thing that you took from that ayahuasca experience?
Yeah, for me, and the shamans say if you go 50 times, you'll get 50 different experiences. But for me, I realized I was judging other people, but it was really just judging myself. So a lot of stuff around forgiveness came up, specifically like forgiving myself and not being such a judgmental prick, which was really, just judging me on my past and my mistakes and what I've done. So yeah, it definitely felt like a massive weight off my shoulders. And again, you could have read that in a book, but to feel that in an experience in a ceremony like that it's so visceral, because you're in this different universe, literally, with characters and shapes and geometry happening. But then when that speaks to you, it's like, well, you can feel that at a deeper level.
And from what I hear as well too, a friend of mine, he's done a few different ayahuasca experiences. He's done Kiambo, he's done the frog, all these different ones as well too. But it's something that you do have to be prepared for in terms of where you're going to go, and like fighting those demons a lot of the times that come up and being able to handle that. It's not just this wee pleasant trip and you come back out thinking, oh, the word's great and now it's changed.
Yeah, it's not taking an MDMA cap at a music festival. It's like it's a journey, man. Like it's a lot.
Yeah, 100%. I'm going to look into it more. Pete, I'm going to let you go shortly. Before I do, what are your top three books in any like personal development, life in general? What are your top three books that you've learned most from?
Oh, great question. First book I was given in the PD world and I come back to annually would be How to Win Friends and Influence People. I think people glance over that because it's so simple, but it's great.
Yeah.
I love Byron Katie's work, and her book, The Work, is probably a good place to start if you're new to her stuff. And Joe Dispenza, I think if you're looking to change and to break habits of your former self, any of his books, probably his most recent one would be most beneficial. But if you're into that, then just go into all of his, because I think you won't regret that.
Breaking the Habit of Being You is a really good book. It has,
Dude, amazing. I was booked in. He was meant to be here maybe 3 months ago, but obviously that changed. So I've got credit for when we can see him again, and I can't wait to book that in.
Yeah, fantastic. Pete, for anybody that's listening in who does want your services, who is looking for your help and coaching, etc., where's the best place to find you?
Yeah, so either Instagram or Facebook, just search. I think I'm the only Pete Tansley that I know of. So search and you'll see me on both those platforms pretty easily.
Excellent. Pete, thanks for hopping on, bud. Pleasure to speak.
Dude, thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure, and we'll talk soon.
Cheers, man.